J.R.R. Tolkien's legendarium is a vast tapestry of myth, history, and moral philosophy, where monsters often embody deeper themes of corruption, ancient evil, and the unknown. While creatures like dragons and trolls are well explained within the cosmology of Middle-earth, all beings deriving from Morgoth's corruptions, certain entities remain unexplained. These unexplained monsters, such as the Watcher in the Water, the Nameless Things, and Old Man Willow, defy easy categorization, existing on the fringes of Tolkien's structured world. They evoke a sense of cosmic Lovecraftian horror, hinting at primordial forces predating the Valar and Elu-Ilúvatar's ordered creation. In this video, we will explore what is known about these primordial entities, delving into the lore that Tolkien wrote into the edges of his pages to enrich the depth and mystique of his world. On January 13th of TA 3019, the Fellowship sidestepped a dark pool of stagnant water to approach the Doors of Durin. The Cianan River had once flowed through this valley, so something had dammed or diverted it. As Gandalf tried to recall the password to open the door, Boromir threw a rock into the pool in his frustration, rousing a creature. Out of the water, a long, sinuous tentacle had crawled. It was pale green, luminous, and wet. Its fingered end had hold of Frodo's foot and was dragging him into the water. 20 of them moved with one intention. Its strength was horrible. Its stench was hideous. Sam was the fastest to act, hacking at the limb to free Frodo as 20 additional tentacles burst from the lake, accompanied by a horrid stench. As the Fellowship fled into Moria, the tentacles groped along the shore, seized the doors, and with a brutal force slammed them shut. "I felt that something horrible was near from the moment my foot touched the water," Frodo said. "Was it one creature or many?" "I do not know," answered Gandalf, "but the arms were all guided by one purpose. Something has crept or been driven out of dark waters under the mountains. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world." He did not speak aloud his thought that whatever it was that dwelt in the lake, it had seized on Frodo first, among all the company. As the Fellowship traversed Moria, they came across the tomb of Balin and the Book of Mazarbul. Within the last pages of the book, Gandalf read the plight of Balin's company, which attempted to recolonize Khazad-dûm 30 years prior. Initially, the dwarves had been successful, but Balin was killed by an orc archer, allowing the foe to recapture the East Gate, First Hall and Second Hall after a fierce battle. The dwarves tried to escape the onslaught, and it was said of those fleeing for the Westgate that Oin's party went 5 days ago, but only 4 returned. The pool is up to the wall at Westgate. The Watcher in the Water took Oin. We cannot get out. It seems that, prior to the orc assault, it was the dwarves who dammed the Sauron outside the West Gate. Over time, the dam created a lake that rose to the doors themselves and receded somewhat by TA 3018. We are never given a full description of the creature or creatures that gave rise to the 20 tentacles. During The Hobbit, when Bilbo is venturing into Gollum's cave, we are given a possible description. So it is a pool or lake, and not an underground river, he thought. Still, he did not dare to wade out into the darkness. He could not swim, and he thought too of nasty, slimy things with big, bulging blind eyes wriggling in the water. There are strange things living in the pools and lakes in the hearts of the mountains. Fish whose fathers swam in goodness only knows how many years ago, and never swam out again, while their eyes grew bigger and bigger and bigger from trying to see in the blackness. Also, there are other things more slimy than fish. It could be that these slimy fish creatures were the Watcher, but there is no definitive description beyond the tentacles themselves. The tentacles are described as long, sinuous, pale green, luminous with fingered ends. They are certainly formidable, as they uprooted trees and toppled the West Gate with ease. Moreover, Balin's company ostensibly chose to face an entire orc army over them. Additionally, the tentacles seemed to target the ring-bearer, not Boromir, who threw a stone, nor Bill the pony, who was closer by, suggesting perhaps an insidious intelligence. Gandalf surmised that the monster might be very old, driven up from the dark waters under the mountain. Perhaps it was the awakening of Durin's bane that drove the monster up. So what is the origin of this monster? Could it be that the Watcher was a primordial aquatic creature corrupted by Morgoth? J.E.A. Tyler, in The Complete Tolkien Companion, suggested the Watcher was actually one of Morgoth's ambiguous cold drakes. However, it seems far more likely the Watcher was a byproduct of Morgoth, rather than being directly designed by him, as Morgoth greatly feared the sea, which was the domain of Ulmo. Unlike most of the Valar who dwelt in Valinor, Ulmo dwelt in the seas and watched over the children closely. Because of this, Morgoth was unable to subdue or control water, never building ships or waging war by sea, and even his servants shunned the water. Vilin Flieger's Splintered Light interprets the Watcher as an embodiment of unlight, a concept Tolkien explored in the Silmarillion, where darkness is not mere absence, but an active, malevolent force. Flieger argues that the Watcher's habitat in the polluted waters near Moria symbolizes the corruption seeping from Morgoth's ancient wars, perhaps a remnant of Autumno's horrors. Unlike Balrogs or dragons, which are explicitly Morgoth's servants, the Watcher seems independent, possibly predating the Ainur's arrival. Matthew Dickerson and Jonathan Evans's book, titled Ents, Elves and Eriador, views the Watcher as a perversion of nature, its polluted pool a result of industrial dwarven mining. They link it to Tolkien's environmentalism, as expressed in Letter 155, where he laments the despoiling of landscapes. Many Tolkien fans theorize that the Watcher is a fallen Maiar, but scholars such as Douglas A. Anderson dismiss this for lack of evidence, emphasizing Tolkien's intentional vagueness. Tom Shippey, in The Road to Middle-earth, compares the Watcher to the Kraken of Norse legend, suggesting Tolkien drew from Old English sources like Beowulf, where monsters lurk in watery abysses. Shippey noted the Watcher's tentacles evoke the grasping motif in Anglo-Saxon poetry, representing uncontrollable natural forces that threaten heroic quests. This aligns with Tolkien's letter to Milton Waldman, in which he describes Middle-earth as a world where ancient evils persist in forgotten corners, not fully subdued by the gods. Michael Drout, in J.R.R. Tolkien Encyclopedia, connects the Watcher to Babylonian chaos monsters like Tiamat, primordial sea beasts slain by gods, a motif Tolkien subverts by leaving it undefeated. Drout argues this underscores the themes of enduring evil, as per Tolkien's essay on fairy stories, where subcreation mirrors an imperfect world. In terms of narrative function, the Watcher serves as a threshold guardian, testing the Fellowship's resolve before entering Moria's deeper perils. John Rateliff's The History of the Hobbit draws analogies to similar guardians in Tolkien's earlier works, like the water demons in Drafts of the Hobbit. Rateliff suggests that revisions to the Moria sequence, by emphasizing the Watcher's mystery, heighten tension and reflect Tolkien's evolving style toward ambiguity. Even more obscure than the Watcher in the water, and possibly even related, were beings Gandalf refers to when describing his battle with the Balrog to Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli. We fought far under the living earth, where time is not counted. Ever he clutched me, and ever I hewed him, till at last he fled into dark tunnels. They were not made by Durin's folk, Gimli son of Gloin. Far, far below the deepest delving of the dwarves, the world is gnawed by nameless things. Even Sauron knows them not. They are older than he. Now I have walked there, but I will bring no report to darken the light of day. In that despair, my enemy was my only hope, and I pursued him, clutching at his heel. Thus he brought me back at last to the secret ways of Khazad-dûm. Too well he knew them all. Ever up now we went, until we came to the endless stair. The only possible description of these nameless things comes from the same passage from The Hobbit about Bilbo's venture into Gollum's cave. Also, there are other things more slimy than fish. Even in the tunnels and caves the goblins have made for themselves, there are other things living unbeknownst to them that have sneaked in from outside to lie up in the dark. Some of these caves, too, go back in their beginnings to ages before the goblins, who only widened them and joined them up with passages, and the original owners are still there in odd corners, slinking and nosing about. Based on these two passages, we know that creatures were capable of creating tunnels large enough for Balrogs to navigate, and were older than Sauron, predating the physical arrival of some Maiar to Arda. Similar to the Watcher, they could be primordial creatures, or beings corrupted directly or indirectly by Morgoth, though we are given no indication that they are evil. Tolkien scholar Tom Shippey interprets them as manifestations of the existential void, drawing from Tolkien's experiences in World War I trenches. As John Garth details in Tolkien and the Great War, the nameless things symbolize the senseless, subterranean horrors of war, echoing the no man's land where unnamed terrors lurk. Shippey, in The Author of the Century, links them to Old Norse concepts of Niflheim, the misty underworld, suggesting Tolkien infused philological depth to evoke pre-Christian dread. Flieger's A Question of Time explores their temporal anomaly. Beings older than Sauron imply existence before the world's shaping. Flieger argues that this challenges Eru's monopoly on creation, perhaps representing chaotic residues from the Ainulindali's discordant music. In The Silmarillion, similar unnamed evils are hinted at, but Flieger sees the Nameless Things as deliberate gaps in the cosmology, underscoring Tolkien's Catholic view of incomplete human knowledge. Dimitra Fimi examines cultural influences, comparing them to Aboriginal Dreamtime entities or Lovecraft's elder gods, though Tolkien disavowed direct inspiration. Despite this, Fimi, in Celtic myth in contemporary children's fantasy, notes parallels with Welsh Anwin creatures, underworld beings whose names are avoided to avoid summoning them. Todd Jensen suggests that the Nameless Things may have been inspired by the dragon Nidhogg of Norse mythology, who gnawed at the roots of Yggdrasil. Narrative-wise, the Nameless Things heighten Gandalf's resurrection arc, as analysed by Janet Brennan Croft in War and the Works of J.R.R. Tolkien. Croft views their presence as a descent into hell, akin to Christ's harrowing, with the creatures as demonic remnants, too ancient for Sauron's command. During the Fellowship of the Ring, the first hostile character the hobbits faced after leaving the Shire was Old Man Willow. The hobbits are forced to cut through the old forest. As they did so, Merry observed that the forest is queer and the trees do not like strangers. They watch you. Occasionally the most unfriendly ones may drop a branch or stick a root out, or grasp at you with a long trailer. I have only once or twice been here after dark, and then only near the hedge. I thought all the trees were whispering to each other, and the branches swayed and groped without any wind. They do say the trees do actually move, and they can surround strangers and hem them in. In fact, long ago they attacked the hedge. They came and planted themselves right by it and leaned over it. But the hobbits came and cut down hundreds of trees, and made a great bonfire in the forest, and burned all the ground in a long strip east of the hedge. After that, the trees gave up the attack, but they became very unfriendly. As the hobbits travelled through the old forest, Old Man Willow cast a sleeping spell on them, before trapping Pippin and Merry in the cracks of its trunk and tipping Frodo into a stream. Sam managed to stay awake and saved Frodo. Afterwards, the two burned dry leaves, grass and bark to scare the tree before it squeezed Pippin and Merry to death. All of them were saved by Tom Bombadil, who put the tree to sleep. Tom would go on to explain that the hearts of the trees and their thoughts, which were often dark and strange, are filled with a hatred of things that go free upon the earth, gnawing, biting, breaking, hacking, burning, destroyers and usurpers. It was not called the Old Forest without reason, for it was indeed ancient, a survivor of vast forgotten woods. And in it there lived yet, aging no quicker than the hills, the fathers of trees, remembering times when they were lords. The countless years have filled them with pride and rooted wisdom, and with malice. But none were more dangerous than the great Willow. His heart was rotten, but his strength was green, and he was cunning, and a master of winds, and his song and thought ran through the woods on both sides of the river. His grey, thirsty spirit drew power out of the earth, and spread like fine root threads in the ground, and invisible twig fingers in the air, till it had under its dominion nearly all the trees of the forest, from the hedge to the downs. Prior to writing Lord of the Rings, Tolkien had developed Old Man Willow as a predatory tree in his 1934 poem The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. Flieger notes that in this draft, and in the 1943 Manuscript B, Tolkien links a tree and a spirit, a non-incarnate mind which is imprisoned in an individual tree. It seems evident that Old Man Willow's malice derives from the time of Gorhendad Oldbuck's colonization of the land between Brandywine and the Old Forest, when the hobbits of Buckland felled the forest to make their new homes and build the Hedge, a large wall separating their country from the woodland. As Merry explained, when the trees grew too close to the hedge, the hobbits cut down the nearest ones and formed a clearing using a bonfire, causing them to become more hostile. It seems much less likely that Morgoth or Sauron played any role in imprisoning a spirit within a tree to form Old Man Willow, and more plausible that the creature was an Ent or a Huorn, bitter over the destruction of its old forest. Tom Shippey analyses Old Man Willow as a folkloric holdover, akin to the Green Man or Scandinavian tree spirits, in The Road to Middle-earth. Shippey argues it represents nature's indifference to humanity. Flieger views Old Man Willow as a symbol of entangled time, its ancient grudge against two-legged creatures stemming from prehistoric deforestation, per Green Sons and Fairy. Fimi compares Old Man Willow to the sacred oaks of Druidic lore in Tolkien race and cultural history. Fimi posits Tolkien subverted romanticized nature, making Old Man Willow a critique of anthropocentrism. Narratively, Old Man Willow serves as a pivotal early antagonist, bridging the pastoral innocence of the Shire with the darker perils of the wider world. As the Hobbits' first major encounter with hostility beyond their homeland, it underscores themes of nature's latent dangers and the consequences of environmental disregard. Jane Chance, in The Lord of the Rings: The Mythology of Power, notes how Old Man Willow's hypnosis mirrors the ring's allure, challenging the Hobbits' innocence and forcing them to confront external evils. Tolkien's unexplained monsters, the Watcher, Nameless Things, and Old Man Willow, serve as vital counterpoints to his more defined lore, embodying the inscrutable aspects of existence that defy categorization. They highlight themes of ancient chaos, environmental retribution, and the boundaries of knowledge, enriching Middle-earth's depth. Scholars universally praise how these entities draw from diverse mythologies, infusing Tolkien's Catholic worldview with pagan mystery. As Shippey and Flieger emphasize, their ambiguity invites ongoing interpretation, ensuring the legendarium's timeless appeal. Ultimately, these monsters remind us that true wonder lies in the unknown, urging us to respect the world's hidden perils. More videos on the mysteries of Middle-earth are on the way, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we